They might talk about humor, music, film, books, football and box sets, exercise and maybe even food, trivia and sport, politics and health, sometimes well-being too. On the Life with Brian. On the Life with Brian.
Coming up on Life with Brian.
He put his car into the garage in Bathgate to get service. About 6 days in Lisbon, he's walking down the street with his pal and he goes, "There's my car sitting there." And the boy goes, "No, it's not." He says, "It can't be your car, it's in Bathgate, it's in the thing." And he went, "I'm telling you, that's my car." He goes into his pocket, he had the key for his house and his door and had started his car up.
They would let priests in because they were quite happy to let priests in because the likelihood of them having children of their own was almost nil, you know. So it's just for the lifetime of them where they were members.
And then just as his final quote, he says, "By the way, I know you're our favourites." He said, "I'd just like to say he's fucking better one because I've got 10 grand on you."
Hello and welcome to episode 58 of Life with Brian, the Brian McClare podcast. I'm Mark, and first an apology for my sound quality. I'm currently away from my cutting-edge dining table recording facilities in a German hotel room. But thankfully, Matthew and the main man, Brian McClare, are both ensconced at their high-tech, high-spec microphones. So you'll get to hear a lot more from them than me. Brian, I see you went on loan to another podcast to team up with another ex-Celtic scoring hero recently.
Yeah, I did indeed. Yeah, Frank McAvenny had invited me along to participate in his, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And him and his host seemed to quite enjoy it as well because they kind of said that it would be all done within 45 minutes, but I don't know whether my stories were too long or whether they thought they were entertaining, but it was almost 90 minutes before they decided they'd had enough, you know. So, it's the opposite, Stephen. You know, I found myself talking a bit too much in Frank's. I tried to let the guest be the one who says on our podcast. But yeah, no, it was a good day. Had a good afternoon.
And speaking of guests, we've got another one this time. He's a professional golfer who's a multiple winner on the European Tour and was a member of Europe's successful Ryder Cup winning team in 2014. It's a welcome to the show to Stephen Gallacher. How are you, Stephen?
I'm great, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. A little bit jet lagged, just back from America, but I'm feeling okay now.
Stephen, can I go back to your beginnings of life with football? I believe you had a little spell as a goalkeeper when you were growing up.
I did actually, yeah. I was basically the tallest, the fattest, and could kick it the furthest. So that was me. I ticked 3 boxes and I played in goals. And probably a wee bit half daft because we played on. It was gravel as well, so
Red Ash.
Dumping a bit. I think I've still got bits of gravel in my elbows from my days as playing football. Yeah, but I played in Livingston. Actually, Paul Dickoff used to come and play a few games for us as well back in the day, and a couple of guys that played sort of junior level. But it was clear to me early on that my football career wasn't going to go much further. So that's when I got into the golf, basically. I chucked that and started playing golf. Started sort of dogging school and just going to the golf course instead.
It's you have to explain what dogging means.
not the one that everybody's thinking. No, it's just basically
that often happens on a golf course as well, I think.
Well, it's quite quiet places there. It's so they say.
You're speaking from experience, Mark.
I read it on an internet chat room. So.
Yeah. Well, basically, when I moved to Bathgate, if it was nice in the afternoon, my mate used to take my school bag home for me. I used to go on the golf course and practice. So school was I was a part-time. I'd worked it out that school was part-time for me, sort of at an early stage, once I wanted to get into the golf.
What age were you then, Stephen?
Probably first year, 12, 13, something like that. That's when I sort of got the proper bug, the they're putting in hitting the 10,000 balls, 10,000 hours, stuff that they talk about that you need to sort of require. That's when I started sort of sleeping and just 100% golf all the time.
Do you think that what you're saying there is you decided and that school wasn't for you and that kind of education wasn't for you, and you fell in love with golf, and maybe it's because of your background and your relatives, you were going to give it your total attention, particularly when the weather was nice. Or maybe it wasn't, because I would imagine that the lure of the golf course was much more attractive than sitting in a classroom. Do you think that particularly secondary education should be streaming kids towards other things rather than like an academic qualification route? Because not everybody's cut out for school, are they?
No, not at all. I think sport's a great option. I think you're either academic or you're sporty type, isn't it? That's just been a bit broad labelling people, but I was definitely not the academic side. I probably struggled with numbers and stuff, so probably a little bit dyslexic, not knowing about that back in the day when you just got told you were thick. You know what I mean? It wasn't. They have names for it now, so rather than just being stupid and thick. So I probably got something. A wee bit bullied as well. Got a bit of stick. Catholic, going to a Protestant school, a non-denominational school when I came back from growing up, Celtic. It was quite fruity back then in the day. So it was one of the ones where all my friends were sort of, I used to copy off them off exams, and I'm giving away all my secrets here, but it was quite funny. One night I'm in an exam, and the invigilator, the guy that was looking after us all, so he comes up to me and he says, "How are you getting on, pal?" He says, "You playing a team match tonight?" I says, I'm playing a team match at Bathgate. So he's talking away about me in the exam. And as he turns round to walk back to the front, two of my friends are sitting in front, multiple choice. They've just sort of held it up, just quickly copied them all down. I actually passed. How's this one? I was in foundation maths, but I actually went to higher physics. They couldn't work it out. They could not work it out in school. It's the biggest anomaly ever. And I'm kidding on, I'm going into higher physics, and I've not got a clue about anything. And I can hardly add up. And the teachers went, how did you manage to get in this? And I said, I don't know, I just get physics, I just get it. And I'd really left after that. But everything was, I used to go at lunchtime to the golf, and that would be me till it was dark, pretty much every day.
We've kind of got to declare an interest here, haven't we? Because for anyone that doesn't know, the great Bernard Gallacher was your uncle. So was there any chance that you weren't going to do anything else other than play golf, apart from be a goalkeeper?
Well, that's the thing with golf. It's a tough one to actually start as a kid, because unless it's in your family or someone that plays, it's a tough one to actually start it. You need clubs, you need to join. It's quite expensive. So, my dad was a club champion at Bathgate as well in 1984. My uncle had played in 8 Ryder Cups. He went on to captain 3, vice captain 2 of them as well. And actually, the golf club where I'm a member of, Bathgate, where I grew up, it had 2 Ryder Cup captains there from a 20,000 population mining town in sort of West Lothian, Eric Brown. And so they had Eric Brown and Bernard, and they were both big, massive pictures with a Ryder Cup gear on, just as you walk in the clubhouse. So, as a kid there, you had aspirations. They want to play in the Ryder Cup and wanting to, get on the wall and just emulate Eric Brown and my uncle. So, I definitely had a sort of a help through my family. I was always, even when I started playing well, I was always nephew. Stephen Gallacher, nephew of Bernard Gallacher, Ryder Cup star. And I'd got on the tour, and it was Stephen Gallacher, European tour member, the nephew of Ryder Cup star. So I didn't really make it in golf until I could get that label. But then I went to Stephen Gallacher, Ryder Cup player, cousin of Kirsty Gallacher. So it's sort of that's when I knew I'd made it. I'd got rid of the Bernard stuff, and I was now cousin of Kirsty, because she was famous at the time on the TV. So that's sort of the Gallacher name. There's a few of us that have done no bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if it's the same with football, but I mean, was there a pressure from the family? I mean, what if you'd said, "Oh, I really, golf's not for me. I'm just, it's not." I imagine that might have caused a bit of a ripple, or were you given the freedom to decide what you wanted to do?
No, freedom. My mum, she was a sister. She worked at the hospital. My dad worked all his days. He was a salesman up and down the country, and they just pretty much backed me. You know what I mean? I showed at an early age I was pretty good as well. And they just follow your dreams. I can remember getting hit with dusters in school and chalk and all that for the teachers. I want to be a professional golfer. Good luck with that. You need to stick in with this. Here's a duster that he'd whack for talking when you shouldn't be. And there was always you had the pressure of being Bernard's nephew, but I think that helped me in a perverse way. That I've always had pressure on me, and you need to handle pressure at the top level. So if I could come through the label of Bernard's was my uncle and Ryder Cup player, and I sort of came through that. It was quite great. It was good having him as well for advice, because I won the Scottish Amateur the men's amateur when I was 17, and I thought to myself, right, I'm just going to turn pro. I'm good enough. I'd won the Scottish boys that year as well, and I phoned my uncle, and he says, no, absolutely not. He says, you're nowhere near good enough. He said, you need to try and win as much as you can at amateur level and play the Walker Cup, which is the amateur version of the Ryder Cup when you play against America. And he says, once you can do that, you can turn pro. And so that's what I did. I left school and I worked as a hospital porter for 6 months in the off season to get money to go full-time amateur. So I'd done that for 3 years, and then got to the Walker Cup. And he was right, you're ready then to sort of turn pro. And great advice that I try and give to kids these days as well.
Yeah, I mean, despite your love of the game, I heard you on an interview some time back saying that you felt like you were getting paid for your hobby, and that's something that, Brian, you've said many a time that I've heard you say. So as much as you put your hard work into it, it's obviously something that you still feel isn't really a job.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's just you get paid to play a sport that you love. You would be playing it anyway. That's the way I looked at it. I would be playing golf. I love it. I just played 12 days out of 14 there, 12 rounds out of 14, and I'll be in a buggy now, which is brilliant, being a senior. But it still burns a hole in my arse to get up every morning and try and improve. And, you're always working in this game, you just get that a little bit better.
Just what you said there, Stephen, you kind of just rewind there about, you start your journey now. There's so many things that can go wrong with golf. How you hold it, how you swing, how you hit the club, how you address it. So right at the very beginning, did you have lessons from your family, or was you just watching them, people playing, or did you just go out and how did that? Because I would imagine if you pick up bad habits right at the beginning, they're going to be very difficult to change,
You definitely, I used just a set like any other person that starts. I got a set of hand-me-down clubs back in the day, my dad's old clubs, just to chop about with. And then my uncle, my great uncle Johnny, who I'll probably talk about, he was the one that got me into Celtic and all that back in the day. He gave me my first set of clubs. They got John Letters, Lee Trevino, Supermex, little half set. And I think the thing at the start of golf is you just go and play, and you learn all your bad habits. And then when you start to get a little bit better, the sort of process was you start playing for your team at the golf club, the junior team. And then if you do half decent, but similar to you, with your career coming up, probably you went schoolboy football, you get picked up S form, you kind of do the way up, and then you get the reserves, and then you get break into the team, and then you play for Scotland. But it's the same. You play for your club, you end up going to your county, and when you start going to county, that's when you start getting coaching. That's when you would get sort of PGA professional coaching. The guy at the golf club would look after you when you were in the team. You'd go and you'd get coaching at your county level, and then the thing that helped me the most was I got into a Scotland squad, and it was Bob Torrance, Sam Torrance's father, who was a renowned coach at the time. He was coaching world number ones down in Largs, and I started seeing him, and he was the one that instilled into me better technique, work ethic. You know, his mantra was, a day you don't hit balls is a day lost forever. And it's a bit deep when you're a kid thinking that. But now, the more I look at it back in the day, you know, I was going out in the rain and the snow and stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, I'm one up here because guys aren't going out in this. So I would actually go and practice in the shit weather all the time just because I knew other guys weren't doing it. And I felt as if I had a sort of one up on that. And you do start with all the bad habits. You've always got a DNA in your swing, and you're always trying to work against it, you know, just to try and basically goals how bad, if your bad shots are bad, you're struggling. If your bad shots are pretty good, that's when you can sort of compete. That's what the top guys do. You know, everybody hits a good shot, but it's being able to have the bad shot under control.
I was just going to move on to Celtic, which is probably your second greatest love from the bits and pieces I've seen and read about you. And I'm keen to hear about your early experiences of indeed, when did you first start watching Celtic on the TV, or somebody take you along to a home game or an away game?
My football career, watching. My old man was a Hibby. My Uncle Bernard's a Hibby. My other side of my families are all Hibs fans. And so I went to, actually, Easter Road was my first ever game. My dad worked for Anderson Brown. They were straight across from the main stadium, and they had a little 50 club in there. And I used to go, I was at a couple of games with my dad when I was really young. And then the first proper game I went to was 1985. It was Celtic Scottish Cup, played Inverness Thistle, not even a team anymore. We won 6-1, and from then on, that was me. I went to every single game.
Why Celtic, not Hibs then, though? If everybody else was a Hibs fan, just been upward.
No, my other family, my granddad, my uncle, and that, they went, you can't go and watch Hibs. You need to come. You need to come with me. Come on.
Family.
And I was a Celtic fan. I've had the strip, believe it or not, I had Celtic strips and Man United strips for a kid all the way up. So you'd have been a favourite of mine.
Yeah, well, you don't have to say that, Stephen.
I know, but the thing is, that is it. It's true. that is the thing, and it's to this day, it's still, I'll tell you a few things as well. But my uncle Johnny was an absolute legend. He was the one that got me into football. He was a single man. He was a railway driver. Got me into golf. He gave me my first set of clubs. Bought me my first Celtic strip, first Man United strip. He was the one that got me in, and he was very, very friendly with someone Brian O'Neilly Markin was his pal, the kit man. He used to do the dancing back in the day. He used to run the dancing. So his other good friend was a guy called Lando Ugolini. I don't know if you know him, Brian.
No, I don't know.
He was a reserve goalkeeper about the time Ronnie Simpson and these guys were there back in the day, and they used to go to the dancing all the time. So we used to get tickets for Neil Mockin. So Armadale had a racetrack, dog racetrack.
Neil loved the dogs. Yeah.
So did Munkle. So Thursday nights, we'd just go to the dogs, and Munkle would give Nearly a couple of jumpers and whatever, and they'd get 2 tickets. and then in the odd, and they were just best mates. And then in the odd chance, you'd be at a game and you'd be turning up, and it'd be like 2 minutes to 3. Are you sure we've got tickets here, Johnny? Uncle Johnny. And then the next minute, the wee head would pop in the door, Nearly Markin. He just shout, Johnny, up the front door, there's your 2 tickets, and away we went. But my uncle had he was in Lisbon. He had a few bob. He flew out for the week before, he had a holiday out there. He put his car into the garage in Bathgate to get service. And about a week in, about 6 days in Lisbon, he's walking down the street with his pal, and he goes, there's my car sitting there. And the boy goes, no, it's not. He says, it can't be your car. It's in Bathgate. It's in the thing. And he went, I'm telling you, that's my car. He goes into his pocket. He had the key for his house and his door, and it started his car up. The guy, the Glens at the time in Bathgate, the mechanics, 6 of them have jumped in his motor and drove it to Lisbon for the game. And drove it back. So
I hope he got a lift back, did he?
he never paid for a service in his life. After that,
quite right.
That's what happened back in the day. And he wasn't, he didn't take the hump. He just thought it was brilliant. So they literally put the shutters down and drove it. You see, it was a Ford Zodiac, I think. It had bench seats.
Yeah, big car.
They took turns sleeping in it, 6 of them. So So that's the kind of the folklore with my uncle, and that's what he was like. We never used to miss a game. I used to go away. Sometimes could have been 7 or 8 of my cousins in the car at one time, in the footwells, in the boot, everywhere. Just going to Parkhead and all the away games.
So that's why he's not a Hibs fan, Brian. There you go, for that story alone.
Exactly, and you know, Johnny was. There was actually another story with him. I can't remember it one day, but he's in folklore, my Uncle Johnny, and one game he's struggling for a ticket, and he's actually sat on the bench. Nearly Mockin's put him on the bench. He's sitting in with it. Because back then there was only one sub. I think it was only one sub back in the day, wasn't it?
Aye. Right.
Or
I
two
went
subs.
one sub, yeah.
One or two subs. So he's actually sitting on the bench with Nearly Mockin, Jock Steen, Sean Fowler, all these boys. So my uncle he knew everybody. He just knew everybody. And he was a proper character. And he was the one that sort of, you know, he would come to my house every week and he'd clean my golf clubs, my grips, everything for me. Just so that whenever I went away to a tournament, I knew that everything was sparkling clean. So it was a huge part of my life. I'd give him the £2 and he'd bring the Celtic view in every week and clean my golf clubs.
So the whole idea was that if you didn't, if you looked like a golfer, there was probably a good chance you could have been a golfer. Standards, wasn't it?
Well, that's what
having
I do.
Shiny shoes and all that kind of thing. I mean, my old man's cleaning shoes were unbelievable. You know, I'd never been able to clean. I like all the shoes and that, but not like he was just like incredible how shiny he could get shoes. But just the good stuff. That's a brilliant story about your uncle being on the bench, because coming relative to Man United, when Ron Atkinson was a manager of United, you would see people on the bench, the same kind of thing. There would only be a few subs, and at United it was more like a temporary kind of thing because of the way that the pitch was. And Big Ron's mate, who owned a clothes shop, so Big Ron used to go and this lad would kit him out with some clothes and all that, and as in return this lad would be sitting on the bench, not just 1 or 2 games, several games he's actually sitting on the bench in the home games at Old Trafford. And then the other one is a great picture of when Fergie first got the job at United, and his first game is away at Oxford, and there's a picture of the bench and he's out doing what he did for all his football career. He's out remonstrating. And in the background, there's Archie Knox, his assistant. There's Norman Davis, the kent man. There's Jim McGregor, the physio. And that was all the staff you had in first team football then. But there's another guy sitting on the bench, and he's completely disinterested in the game. And the reason why he's disinterested in the game is because he's a Man City fan. And he's a bus driver. And he's sitting there because the secretary at the time, Ken Merritt, wouldn't give him a ticket for the stand. So he used to sit in the away games. He would be sometimes on the bench, sometimes sit at the side if they were. But in that particular game, he's sitting in the dugout just thinking, can you hurry up with this? This is... Well, he might have been enjoying it because you're hoping to getting beat.
But the thing is that was Fergie's first game, famously. My first game was that game, and so he might not have even known who that was. Fergie might have thought that was part of his new staff. If things had turned out differently, that bus driver...
Oh, well, he drove the bus the day before. Of course he knew he was. All other players knew him because he'd been driving the bus for a couple of years. And what was brilliant about this, when I came 6 months later, he was still the bus driver, Stephen, and he was brilliant at getting you back because it was before buses, I think, were restricted to 63 mile an hour, whatever. So he would be in all the lanes, including the hard shoulder. No problem of just... all the traffic straight over, and right up the hard shoulder to whatever the obstruction was, and then back in again all the time. Incredible! How quick you got back from away games, particularly in London. But he didn't last that much longer. I don't know whether it was because of his driving abilities or because he was a City fan, you know. So they got a United supporting company, and not long after that. Previously on Life with Brian.
You go along the M56, you turn left, that means you only got to have about 4 or 5 points, but if you turn right, with Robson, McGrath, Whiteside, then basically you're losing 2 or 3 days of your life.
Did it get hairy at times?
Oh God, yeah. He said, "I hope you recover from cancer and then get run over by a bin lorry."
Obviously now I'm ginger and beautiful and unique, Brian, but back then you thought you were just a wee ginger ball bag from the west coast of Scotland, you know.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
It's good for you that you brought up Fergie, actually, because I was going to touch on this later. But you might as well talk about it now. You've both been recipients of the famous Ferguson pep talk, team talk, whatever you want to call it. Brian, we know you've mentioned it before. Stephen, I just wondered how it was for you, because he famously got involved in that winning Ryder Cup team, didn't he?
Yeah, Paul McGinley brought Fergie into. He came up to us. The whole team were there. The 5 backroom staff, and Fergie came in and done a chat, and then credit to him, he went down and had a chat with the caddies and all that as well. So he came in, and obviously Fergie's Fergie. I was a Man U fan and watched everything he did. You know, so when he talks, he's one of those guys. When he talks, you listen. He's got that sort of aura about him. There's not many people that I've met that have got stuff like that. You know, Seve had it, Fergie had it. And he basically spoke up, and he just spoke his similarities to when he's at Man United. You know, he says, I'm a favourite. We're favourites, basically, when we turn up every game and we're expected to win. And you're favourites this week, you're expected to win. He says, and the bookies don't normally get it wrong. He says, what you've got to do is embrace being a favourite. You know, you're here because you're better players than them. It's as simple as that. And he says that what you've got to guard against is complacency. And this is what he talked about. He said, you can't be complacent. He says, I've had it come into my football club and it's like a cancer. You just can't get rid of it. You can't stop getting beat until you get this out. And he says, all you've got to do is just go out there and just play the game that got you in here and don't think of anything else. You know, and if there's a bit of, if there's red on the board, just try and get it back to as much blue as you can. You know, to Europe and keep chipping away. And that's basically what he just basically broke it down to. You just got to do what you're done to get in here yourself. You know, you're a team. Stick together. And then just as his final quote, he says, by the way, I know you're favourites. He said, I'd just like to say, you's fucking better one because I've got 10 grand on you. that was his final gambit. And, you know, and in fairness, he won. He had 10 grand on us, whatever it was. And he spoke away. It was quite good because there was a good wee bit of banter. There was a few Arsenal fans in there, a few City fans, a few Liverpool fans between us all. And he just spoke away. And it was basically the complacency thing. I've spoke to other managers about this in the past, and they said it can happen. You get a couple of, I think it probably happened to Celtic in the 2021 season when you've got 4 or 5 guys walking away at one time. I spoke to Lee Gordon about it. He says it's really tough you can have a couple of guys that maybe want to move. You can manage that a little bit, but if there's 4 or 5 guys walking away and, you know, they're maybe got their focus on something else, it can sort of go through the team. And that's what he was basically saying. You know, there's a few guys get left out in tournaments and stuff in the Ryder Cup, and that's when you've just got to be positive and give your support. And Paul McGinley he was brilliant. He was huge on that as well. He said the egos are at the door. There's no egos now. It's just us. It's all about us, and we're just going to focus on ourselves. Nothing about America. No TVs, no news, no nothing. Just all about us gelling, and that's what it was. You know, we don't play team football. We don't play a lot of team stuff, so it's pretty good when you actually get involved in a team and you buy into the dynamic of it. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I was thinking that because obviously that speech was quite famous in terms of you winning the Ryder Cup. I was thinking it's an individual sport. You've just been in America playing and you're on your own essentially, apart from a coach and a caddy. I guess you must look at football and I just wonder how different it could be if you did benefit from having somebody like that there giving you. I suppose maybe that's where a coach comes in, isn't it? Yeah,
you've got guys you speak to. If you're a kind of psychologist and stuff, you've got your game plan worked out. You know, music's a massive, like what you guys talk about. We can talk later on, but just getting your game plan. Yeah. But the thing with golf is you're out there for 5 hours, and it's just you only really need to concentrate for 7.5 minutes, So there's a lot of dead time. There's a lot of negative stuff can get in. There's a lot of negative self-talk. So if you've got to almost have a proper routine that you get into to try and keep yourself in the present. Team sports are a little bit better. You can talk to your player. You can have a sort of slightly off day, but your teammates can carry you. If I have an off day, it's me. I'm out. So you've got to have good people around about you, a good caddy, somebody you can speak to, a coach that if you need to tweaks here and there, and then ultimately it's just down to your own battle with the golf course.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously had Gordon Strachan on last episode, and I think you heard it. And so I was going to say, you didn't get the wrath of his tongue, unlike Brian did on many occasions. You didn't get the chance of that.
No, I'm very good friends with Gordon. I play quite a bit of golf with him. It's actually quite a funny story how we got together. We were sitting. I was with my wife Helen and her mum, and my son. He was only 3 years old, I think, 4 years old. And we're at Edinburgh Gyle doing a bit of shopping, and we stop in for a Starbucks. And I'm sitting there, and Gordon Strachan's sitting in the corner having a cup of tea. And I've said, "There's God, the Celtic manager's over there." And Betty's like, "Go over and say hello to him." I went, "I'm not going over. No chance." I says, "He's just having a cup of tea. Just leave him." So she went over, and I'm like, "Betty, what are you doing?" She gets up. She goes over and says, "Hi, Gordon. There's a couple of big Celtic fans sitting at the table. Any chance you can meet?" And Gordon comes over, and I said, "Hi, I'm Stephen Gallacher." And big man, you done well the other week there. I watched you. I think I'd won the Dunhill in St Andrews. And he went, "I watched you play over there. That's magic." And he said, and the wee man's sitting there, and he says, "What are you doing in the morning?" I was, "Nothing." "Well, come up to Lennoxtown. Come up and watch us train." I went, "Oh, you're joking?" He went, "No, just up you come. Just up you come and just say you're coming to see me." So, I'm buzzing and taking the wee man up tomorrow, and so we drive up to Lennoxtown, and it's like going into Fort Knox. There's gates for another gate, and I'm just driving up going, what do we do here? "Hi, I'm here to see Gordon Strachan." Get through the next bit. "I'm here to see Gordon Strachan." "Right, up you come into the main reception." And the wee man comes down with his tracksuit on, and "Come on, we'll go out and watch this train." And we go out and watch some train, and he's right in amongst it. He's on the pitch with a whistle, managing it, shouting at folk. And Gary Caldwell got it tight that game. I think he was giving him some stick. And so then we come back into the Gary Pembry's there and all that. And we come back into for lunch. So we're sitting at lunchtime, and the boys have been. I knew that the kit man at the time, Stevie Wright, I was friendly with him. He was security before he was the kit man, and I'd been to a few games. And so Jack gets given a signed ball. So he's sitting with this ball, and another legend came in. Danny McGrain came in. I think he was maybe a coach at the time or something. And I got to see him play a couple of times just as I was a kid. So, and obviously he's a hero. And so Danny comes in. He says, "Right, everybody," he tings his glass. "Right, everybody, I'd just like to say something. There's been a football stolen from my wee son's sitting with this ball," and he's just whipped it straight under his jumper as fast as anything. "There's been a football stolen. There's one shot. Has anybody seen a football?" And Danny comes into my ball. He's got it up his jumper. and then he just rubs his hair and he says, "No bother, boy. Well done, me man. And then here, there's a pair of boots for you as well." And we couldn't have been any nicer. And then just from that time, I'd go up and watch a couple of games, and got to know Scott Brown pretty well. And then ever since then, it's been magic.
I heard you say that you the one golf course in the UK or Europe that if you had the choice that you would, this only course you could play would be St Andrews, but I love watching and always love watching the Open, Stephen, but I just something about Augusta and the Masters is kind of magical for me. Is loving all kind of different sports, particularly recently when Rory manages to win, and then that's him win all four. But you just don't. You get a really good thing of it on the television, but what's it like to play in it there? To walk round it, or what's you don't get an impression really of the geography much. I know they do different bits with different graphics and all that now, but Was the water
It's one
really
of
that
the-
colour?
It's one of these things that I played it twice, 14 and 15, and when I knew I was getting, if you're in the top 50 of the world by the end of the year, you get an invitation through the post. It comes in all the beautiful bit of paper, and you're accordingly invited to Augusta, so you know you're in at Christmas. So it's quite a nice touch. So from then on, you can't wait to get there, and you speak to everybody. What's it like? And it's one of the places where everybody bums it up, and you go. Generally, when that happens, you go there and you're a wee bit disappointed.
Aye.
But Augusta, you go there and it's actually better than what people say it is. It's just immaculate from the word go. I think it helps being a fixed abode there all the time. They're just, all the big TV stands are always there. Everything's hidden. It's just, if it's been too warm, they put ice down on the azaleas so that they bloom at the right time. If it's too cold, they put heaters on them to make them bloom. You know what I mean? The greens are phenomenal. The way they look after you, it's just a magical place. When you stand on that Swilcan Bridge and think of it, the bridge over onto the 12th, and you think of the greats that have stood there and put the jacket on, and it's just. There's not a weed, there's not a blade of grass at a place. It's just almost perfect. It is almost perfect. But I tell you what, like you say, it's so hilly, it's unbelievable. You're not ready for how big a golf course it is and how hilly it is. You're knackered when you come off it. Just for the sort of mental stress, you got to leave. It's quite wide open off the tee. It's quite generous. It's it's user friendly. But if you hit it down the right for a right pin, you can't get close to it. So it's very strategic in a way that the fairway's huge, but you've got to plot it in the right bit, and then you've got to leave the second shot in the right bit below the hole, and you can attack that flag, but you can't attack that. And I just thought Rory this year was unbelievable. I had a tear in my eye watching it from, because I know how much he's been wanting this career Grand Slam, and he'd been faltering at the last. He just couldn't go over the line at Augusta. But the way he played this year and the way he hits it is just phenomenal. He's the best player I've ever played with when he's on form. He's hands down better than anybody at driving the ball that I've ever seen. So I'm just so happy for him.
It's football and golf's obviously sort of quite interlinked, intertwined, isn't it? I suppose, whatever the reason is. I suppose players having time on their hands and what have you. What was your relationship with the game, Brian? I know you like to swing a club now and again, but back when you were playing, was it the sort of one of the few pastimes that you and your colleagues would enjoy?
It was, because there was a kind of a calendar kind of thing in Scotland where you played football during the winter, and even when you went down the park to play football, you still do that in the summer. But I remember when my mate had a 7-iron, and we used to just go down the park and bash the balls about. I don't know where the balls came from. And we used to make up your own kind of course, and you had this course that was just in between the football pitches, same kind of things, Stephen red ash pitches, but there was grass around them, and you would go down there and play, and then you get the chance of going to play. And I think the clubs came from, I don't know where the clubs came from that I was using, but my first experience on a golf course was a municipal course in Coatbridge, and they used to have a little rack out the front of it where you put your ball on it. Mm-hmm. Every time, and then when your ball would be whatever number, and then eventually it would be your turn to get onto the course. And I went and played with my cousin. I'd never played, and I got no idea what you were doing. We just went out there and went really smashing balls all over the place for 18 holes, But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and also as well, which we particularly frowned upon. I used to go and play sometimes on a Friday night when I was at Celtic, play 9 holes.
That's exactly what I started.
So
on the football pitches, just hitting to the posts, and brilliant. That's the good thing with golf. You just need a club and a ball. So you can go to the beach, you can go to anywhere, and just start whacking.
With the benefit of we got a free membership at a course in Cheshire, so to go up there.
Yeah. Matthew, you ought to share on Twitter again. I think we've done it before. I think it's from Football Focus, isn't it? Where Brian and Mark Hughes are out playing golf, and they're getting interviewed. And Brian's got, I think he's got tracksuit pants and shoes on.
Worse, he's got jeans on and a Waterboys t-shirt.
Oh, actually jeans, is it? Yeah. Is it Sparky who was wearing tracksuit pants and shoes? But certainly wouldn't let you in Augusta looking like that.
Well, yeah, just talking about that kind of thing, because I played in another course again in Coatbridge, Matthew. That one I'm saying Friday night called Drumpeller, which was quite a posh course for even for Scotland,
Even for Coatbridge.
membership, and I played in something, and I played there, and there with Stephen somebody came and took a picture of me, I think, and I had tracksuit bottoms on, and they changed the rules the following week. They had a big meeting about it because I was in the paper on their first green or something, or the putting green with tracksuit bottoms on. So that got debarred the following week because of me, I wasn't even a member. I was just there playing with my mate,
This is a man who never wears anything other than shorts.
It's quite funny as well, though, Stephen, is that at the time in this golf course, and you'll understand that even though it was in Coatbridge, they had on the forum, when you're applying, you had to apply because a lot of the times golf courses in those days were full. They would ask you what your religion was.
Oh, definitely. I know all about it.
So they had that in this form, and my mate got in because they didn't. They thought that his surname was a Protestant name or a non-Catholic name. So his family got in. He didn't realise, so let this guy in. There's his dad in, and there were 7 of them, right? So they immediately got in as well. And the only ones that they would let in, they would let priests in because they were quite happy to let priests in because the likelihood of them having children of their own was almost nil, so it was just for the lifetime of them while they were members, so, and I got the rules changed, so I'm quite proud of that.
Well, my uncle won a tournament there and didn't get allowed in the clubhouse to get his prize.
Was he wearing the Celtics?
No, he had a polo neck on, he wasn't allowed in because pros, being a Catholic and a pro, so he had double done and probably wasn't dressed right, so I don't think he ever went back somehow.
Well, I'm not surprised, but
so footballers that play golf, Stephen, you must have I guess you've probably played with a few in charity events and all different bits and pieces. Now we know Craig Bellamy's got a good swing. He used that to good effect on a tour once in Liverpool when he was playing for Liverpool, didn't he? Tried to bash the living daylights out of John Arnorisa. But who's the best golfer out of footballers that you've seen or played with?
I've played with a lot. Like you say, I played in a charity event in Italy every year for, God rest his soul, Luca Vialli and a guy called Massimo Mauro, who both played for Juve. And I've played in about 15 of them over there. And it's like a who's who. I mean, I played with Johan Cruyff. I used to play with him all the time when I used to go over. I played with Platini and Del Piero, you name them. Pep plays in them all. Just other guys that I've played with, either AC Milan or Juventus, and it's amazing. They've all got one trait. It doesn't matter. They're so competitive. Every golfer. Gordon, I played with Gordon. I've played with, Scott Brown quite a bit. Yeah, Gareth Bale tries. He's got a golf course in his back garden. He looks handy. He swings it really good. Joe Hart loved it at Celtic. He used to play all the time. Greg Taylor's a good wee player. Greg's very good. He can hit it for a wee guy. He hits it brilliant. But they all have one trait. They just hate getting beat. Absolutely hate it. I mean, I went to a Juve game with my son Jack, and Jack's like Celtic Wikipedia. He's just unbelievable with stuff that he knows about Celtic, where he was, scores. He's absolutely Celtic daft. Both of us are. Wake up in the morning, put News Now Celtic on, or we're listening to podcasts all the time. And so we're playing down at Juve's. I've just missed the cut in Switzerland. Came down to Juve, watched the game, and Michel Platini's a host. Now he's like a god over there. So we're in the director's box. We come back. We're just having a couple of beers, and Jack says to Michel Platini, he says, Michel, Celtic's got some really good French guys now. We had Dembele, we had sort of Edouard and then Cham. And he says, I'm just going to stop you there, Jack. He said, I'd rather talk about golf if that's okay. So he turned around to me and he says, how's my grip doing? I'm struggling with my grip now, right? And I'm thinking, Platini's just tied my son off. He's just wanted to talk about football. He talked to me about his left-hand grip with a fork. So he's got the fork, right? He's got the fork out saying, I'm just struggling now to get my thumb over a bit. And I'm sitting there sitting with Platini in the director's box at Juve. He's got a fork for his swing. And I says, well, we'll go for 9 holes in the morning before the Pro-Am on. Oh, I'd love that. because Celtic, it was an Old Firm game, and I says, I can't play after 12 because we're going to go and watch the game. And he says, right, 9 holes in the morning. So I'm out with Platini trying to help his grip. And he just doesn't want to talk anything about football at all, nothing. It's just all about golf, which I thought was... And most of the football players I know want to talk about golf, and all the golfers want to talk about football. Yeah. There is such a... and I think a lot of it to do with is what Brian said, when we're off, our off seasons, when football kicks in, December, 14 games in December, and that's when we're generally always off. And then you get the Champions League stuff. So it ties in brilliantly for us. We sort of play the start of the year and then finish at the end, where football finish in the end. Your season stops now and you get all the majors, you get the Open. So I think it ties in perfectly in the calendar to watch both. But it's amazing. All the pro-ams you see now is just all ex-footballers, playing in pro-ams, and they just love it. And all the foundations and stuff with the golf days. It's great to see.
Apart from your good self, Brian, if you ever do see that clip, I think you've got a great swing. It wasn't quite the same when we went to that golf bar in Liverpool a couple of years ago. I think you must have lost it since then.
That was probably due to the beer, though, wasn't it?
I've got a clip of that, actually. I might put that on social media.
Well, thanks.
Who were the best? Who had the best swing out of your crowd?
I don't know the best swing, but the best players, and they're playing very low handicaps, are Lee Sharp, David May, Clayton Blackmore. Clayton's always trying to qualify for the Senior Open, Stephen,
Is he?
Yeah, always. He got, I think last year he missed it by 1 or 2 strokes, so he's Clayton.
He must be brilliant.
Whatever, what you're just talking about there. When you're with Clayton, irrespective of what the conversation is, about 30 seconds later he's talking to you about what new driver he's got, or this, and I hit it ball there, I did that, and he's also a bit like, when you're talking about your lad, the things that he can remember about his playing career is incredible. Not just the games that he played, but loads of stuff that happened in training, Nearly all the rest of them are sort of scrambling around thinking, I had no idea that happened, Sometimes I have to go on the internet to check that that's indeed the case, but he's incredible. So, but the thing is, I think that maybe it's to do with what I see with all football players really than playing golf, is that when it comes down to that individual bit that you mentioned earlier, that it's only you and it's what you playing against, that they've not had enough experience of that, because you can have a bad game or you can have a below par game or whatever, and you can still get a positive result. Whereas if you don't start well, I think I can remember Gordon always saying that, golf's driving me mad, it says, because I'm hitting a decent score, but my first 2 holes are shite, and that's bollocks. I mean, it just seems to be because I'm really tense, and then I'm thinking, fuck, I'm not going to do anything, I can't do anything this round, or that he relaxes into it and then ends up having quite a good round. And I just think that's the bit that football players would find the most difficult part, is that, how do you just get yourself into that? How do you dig yourself out of a difficult situation that you're used to doing all the time? You're solving problems sometimes, maybe even before you've got to that situation, because the wind might have changed, or the weather might have changed. Something might have happened in the crowd. Something might have happened to your opponent. You might have missed a putt. You might have got a putt, whatever, and it kind of changes. I assume you've got strategies. You go out not just to hit a low score, but you're working your way around all the time. And I just think that maybe that's why that football players are not quite at that, because they always get that kind of bit where you're able to relax. Not saying they're doing it deliberately, but sometimes you know that you don't need to play your best game to get a good result, because you're relying on other people in the team.
They definitely do get nervous more. I've noticed that when they play in the pro-ams. Even I said that about Scott Brown and Gordon. Gordon's not playing the PGA Pro-Am anymore. He says, I can't do it. I think he played with Souness, and who was it? He played with Souness, maybe Kenny Dalglish, one year at Wentworth. And he says, I'm standing up there, and the crowds are up both sides of the fairway. And he says, in my head, he says, it just narrowed it right in. He says, I could hardly get the club back. And I said, I know, but if you've got a penalty in the World Cup to put Scotland through, no bother, I know where I'm going to put that. And I'm like, well, it's relative, isn't it? I mean, it's, they know, you take them out of their comfort zone with the football, you put them in a pitch with 60, 100,000 fans, no bother, that's what I've always done. But if there's 100 people standing at the side of the tee, Gordon's thinking, I'm going to whack it right into these guys here, they could get killed. And it's the same with other football. I just think the footballers, because it's such a fast sport, and if you make if you miss one in front of goal, it doesn't matter, have another go. And I think the golf is, you hit a bad drive, you might not have another drive for 3 holes. It might be a par 3, I think golf just comes that much slower, and there's so much more time to kill. But I think the footballers are always 100 mile an hour. Same with rugby players, they're always 100 miles an hour ahead, but they just can't get onto the pace of it because it's quite a slow game, golf. And you've got to have different strategies for combating the nerves and stuff like that. It's similar to football, just in it's a lot quicker.
You're listening to Life with Brian.
And what came out of my mouth has made sure that there's a place in hell waiting for me.
And then when punk came along, it was like, you could get involved. That's the thing about punk. He said, you could be in a band, you could do a fanzine. And that's basically how it started.
So now I almost actively seek mistakes on stage so that we can all have a right good laugh about it.
Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You mentioned there about missing the cut, and I think at the Masters you get paid. Everybody gets paid anyway, even if you miss the cut. Is that right?
I can't remember.
I think you do, but
you probably do.
So if you miss the cut, basically you've been unemployed that week, haven't you?
Well, you're probably out $4,000 if you miss a cut.
Well, that's what I'm just saying. So,
you're unemployed.
Is there any kind of sway towards changing that, so that if you qualify for, because if you're in whatever, so if you'd be the top 50, for example, to get to the Masters and other championships, you need to be in a certain part of the order of merit in order to get into certain tournaments. Is there any thinking about distributing the wealth, which is incredible now in golf, to people who are qualifying, and even though they miss the cut, they might wash your face with regards to your expenses and all that kind of thing. And how do you deal with all of that? How do you deal with the beginning? I mean, how did you manage to get through? I mean, I know you didn't win for the first, was it 8 years before you won the first tournament? But along the way, of course, you were gathering some earnings. But was there ever a time you thought, I just can't afford this?
No, you obviously have a sponsors. If you're lucky enough, you get a couple of sponsors. I've had a few that have stuck by me, and then if you've used golf ball, you get paid for using a golf ball. You get paid for wearing a hat. You get paid for using clubs. So, but generally, most guys, I'll have enough to sort of do the half end of the year, maybe 3/4 of the tour with missing every cup. So you've almost got a bit of sort of security there. But I think the thing with the cut is, I mean, golf's changing, the dynamic of it's changing quite a lot. Liv have came in, no cut, 3 rounds, last place $50,000, first place $4 million, 70-man field. So if you can get onto that, you're going to make a lot of money. Even in America, they're doing elevated events up to 20 million now as well with no cut. But I think you can't beat the one where you've got a cut, because there's a little bit, everybody, you can't win it unless you make the cut. So if you're having a shit week, you're going to miss a cut. But what you're trying to do then is use the time under pressure to try and work out what you've done wrong so you're better the next week. And I just think that, you cut to 60, the top 60 play at the weekend, you can play in 2 balls. And it's just, that's how I like golf. I mean, I'm totally different now. I'm on the seniors now. It's only 3 rounds. There's no cut. So there's when it's not just the missing the cut, it's changing flights costs money, your hotel, your car hire, you've got to take back. It's just a pain in the bum. And I think that's what drives you on. You can, I mean, Tiger, in his pomp, to put it in perspective, he had a 15-year spell where he won more majors than he had missed cuts. He won 14 majors and he only missed 13 cuts in 15 years. He was phenomenal.
He was all right,
he could make the cut. He didn't need to worry about that. He was always working at the weekend. But Liver trying to change it where there's no cut to make it. But I think you need the cut just for the
No, I don't mean that. I think that they're saying that he's still going to have missed the cut, but you get paid.
I can see where. Yeah, because my mate Colin Fleming, he was in Linlithgow when I stayed there for years. He was a tennis player, played doubles, and he couldn't believe that if you missed the cut, you didn't get any money. He was like, "How does that work?" He says, "We get our hotels paid for, we get our flights paid for, and then if we go out the first round, we get enough that we make ends meet." And he's like, "I can't believe you guys. You can go all the way out there and you miss the cut and you don't get anything." That was just another sportsman saying that. So I think there is a point where if you were to do it, you could. We've talked about it before, but then what happens is if you're letting everybody get some money, it depletes the prize fund, so you don't make as much if you win. But it should be. I quite agree with it, to be honest. I think you should get enough to make your eckies type thing, your hotel and your flight and all that, pay your caddy. Because you've actually earned the right to do that anyway by getting your card, so it's not a bad idea, that.
Yeah, put it to the board, Brian. I think it could be your input into.
I just thought that there had been talks round about that sort of scenario. Anyway.
We have, yeah.
So that it just seems the amount of money there is in all the top tours. That then you're only getting $19 million if you win rather than 20. Maybe that's just,
yeah. Well, it's jeopardy. That's jeopardy, though, isn't it? And that's something that doesn't.
I understand that.
In golf now,
but it just seems to me that that if you've got that, you've gone that bit to actually qualify for each particular tournament, and then you play for a week. And at the end of that year, you can get nothing for it. In fact, you're out of pocket, aren't you, because of all your expenses?
Yeah, on the flip side, I think it would make for great viewing. Bring it into the Premier League, a couple of bad games, and you don't get your 250 grand at the end of the week.
Plenty of people running out of money, weren't they?
Talking of this loving of golf and football, we've got a little game that we always play coming up. But as I always say, we're open to any questions. Brian, have you got anything else up your sleeve, or is there anything you've been dying to ask Steve?
There was only one more question, really. I was just wanting to know what you thought about the art of golf versus the science of golf.
Well, it's changed totally since I've been a professional. You started with wooden clubs and a ball that went nowhere, and now everything's measured. Every single thing is measured. Whether it's what you do in the gym, what you're eating. You've got a radar machine that tells you a lot of stuff. If you want to go into it, there's guys. Matt Fitzpatrick's kept every single one of his stats, every shot he's hit, where he's hit it from he's ever been a professional, and recovery now is everything. The art of sort of driving a golf ball that Jack Nicklaus and Greg Norman were. You can almost hit it anywhere in the golf clubs now. They're that forgiving. I just think, talking about yourself when you're going back to Gordon's one as well, about all the stats and all that. It's very stats driven now. Golf. It's strokes gained. It's Scotty Scheffler the other day was +6 shots gained, putting, and he was +13 strokes gained. So he beat the field by 13 shots. With his tee to green, which is the most it's ever been. Andy led the putting stats. Andy led. So it was no wonder he was 32 under for 4 rounds. But everything's measured now. I think it takes away a wee bit of the sort of feel and the skill. Like Seve never had anything that was measured. He just had an amazing. He had amazing sort of vision. He could see stuff, certain shots and way to play it, and he could feel it. And I think now, the young guys coming out of college now are they could burn out. You've learned at such a young age, they're working on their technique, they're working on their trackman, they're in the gym, they're battering stuff, they're lifting, they're seeing how high they can jump, they can, and I just think it's maybe can take away the sort of the feel part of it and the enjoyment of golf.
Yeah, well, because I was just wondering how long you took putting golf balls into a bath of Epsom salts to see how they reacted.
No, the only thing that goes in that's me. You get for the sore joints and the bad back, and the knee and the ankle.
Because that's what Bryson DeChambeau does allegedly, isn't it?
Like that. I still like to shape the ball, see it moving in both ways. Guys, these guys coming out now, it's all about how far can they hit it. Yeah, Bryson learned most of these golf stuff in the gym. He'd be doing stuff in the gym and then go and whack a shot, that's just the modern way it is. That's what happens. It's even the football guys are getting bought football just with their stats and how they play. But stats on everything. The way I look at it, you can fudge stats, and I still like going out and playing more. I think the stats are great if you're just hitting balls, but once you go out on the golf course, you don't get a flat lie. You don't get the wind's in a different place. You've got a bit of mud in the ball. You're in between clubs. That's when you've got to hit it to the right side of the pin is a good shot. So I still like the art of golf over the sort of science.
I was fortunate enough to spend some time in which was Bollettieri's Tennis Academy in Florida, which Nike kind of took over, and then I don't know if they still got it. There's lots of different sports there, and I would go along and have a look at the little kids hitting tennis balls, who were, and then there was the David Ledbetter's got an academy there, had an academy there. So there's all these kids that are obviously showing promise. And in the afternoon session, they were out and they're practicing their chipping all round the greens, all round everything else there. But there was about 30 or 40 of them are just all doing what they're doing. None of them looked as if they were enjoying themselves.
No. It's tough. Especially if you're doing young kids like that, if they'll be measuring, they'll be having a score, keeping a score. I think you've just got to get out. You've got to have a love for it. I see a lot of people, young kids coming out that, like you say, they've went over the edge. They've just got so technical and so much into numbers that they've actually forgot that it's a sport, and you need a bit of feel. You need a love. You need to. Golf's one of these games you can't just like it. You have to love it. You've got to immerse right into it. You've got to eat, sleep it, everything. But if it can put you off doing all these stats. It can get a bind. I didn't get my number today, but getting a number on a chipping greens, go out on the course. You might not have a chip for 14 holes, and then you've got one. You can't. You can't replicate tournament golf. You can't replicate pressure. That's the only thing that you can't put a number. What's the start and how nervous I was? What's the start on? I hate this shot and I'm just going to play away. These are the things that you've got to combat. You can only get better at them under pressure and then by learning on tournament aspects. You can't replicate that around a chipping green.
Life with Brian.
We've reached the part of the podcast where we roll out the quiz, and in Stephen's honour, we've called this one Pin High or Bad Lie, and here's why. You've got 5 goes each in the penalty shootout format, and what you have to tell us is whether these golf-related names are footballers or not. If they are, or have been a player, say Pin High, and if they're not, and have never been a professional footballer, say Bad Lie. For example, former Scotland goalie Alan Rough would be Pin High, but actor Adam Driver would be a Bad Lie. Do you both understand the rules?
Brian's chuckling. I'm assuming that's a yes the way Brian's chuckling. You're showing off there, Mark, though, because you've given 2 example this week. Usually you're struggling for names. The fact you had 2 extra ones to throw in as an example.
I had tons of them up my sleeve. So, Stephen, you get the pleasure of teeing off. And your first one is John Parr.
John Parr. Oh, I would say Bad Lie.
Excellent. You've stuck that one in the hole nicely. John Parr is a Bad Lie. He's an English singer-songwriter who's most famous for his 1985 smash hit, St. Elmo's Fire, from the film of the same name.
I've got that on a 7-inch single.
There you go.
There's a reason
Can I get that question?
No, there's a
Owner
reason why,
of one of the best mullets.
There's a reason why Mark gives Brian, doesn't give Brian some of these questions. There's a reason why he gives me these to give to you. Because he's basically,
one up with 9 to play, Stephen.
Okay, Brian, you follow Stephen up the first fairway with Warren Caddy.
Bad Lie.
No, you topped it. It's pin high. It's true. Warren plays up front for Swiss side Lausanne Auchi and the Madagascar national team. And so, and Mark's thrown in a pronunciation for me there as well.
You trying to tell me that Madagascar have got a national team?
Well, you're trying to tell me they haven't?
They've got three Disney films and a national team. So, your second shot, Stephen, is Adam Wedge.
Adam Wedge, yeah, he's a footballer. So that'll be pin high.
Oh, you got the yips there. You were certain. Adam Wedge is a Bad Lie. No, Adam Wedge. Adam Wedge is a national hunt jockey who's won multiple Grade 1.
You're showing your other interests here now.
Yeah, I like the horse races as well.
Yeah, there you go. Cheltenham Festival winner with the nags.
He did. Oh, shocker.
Okay,
I went into
Matthew.
Into the trees. Your second effort, Chocky, and it's Billy Hole.
Billy Hole.
Billy Hole.
I actually hope this is right.
Pin high.
Yes, lovely connection. Pin high, true. Billy Hole was a Welsh international who earned 9 caps between 1921 and 1928 and played in Swansea City's first ever Football League match. I'm not accusing you of knowing that, Brian, but it was a good guess.
Yeah, so ones each then. Okay, Stephen, and we'll move on to the next hole, and this time it's Barry Hole.
Can't be 2 holes playing, surely. I'll go Bad Lie.
He's done you.
You've done you there,
Didn't
Stephen.
Play the same game, did he, brothers?
Well, Barry Hole was the son of the aforementioned Billy and played for Swansea, Cardiff, Blackburn and Aston Villa, also earning 30 caps for Wales in the 1960s. So still ones each.
You're trying to trick me there.
Well,
He does it all the time.
Brian, your third attempt is Fritz Putter.
Fritz Putter.
Yeah.
Bad Lie.
Yeah, good guess. I'm assuming it's a guess. Fritz Putter was a German ace fighter pilot of the First World War. He met a grisly end when a plane carrying an incendiary ammunition he was flying combusted in midair. And although he landed the burning plane, he succumbed to his injuries. There's always a bit of bittersweet in these quizzes, isn't there?
I always like a bit of death in these, don't I? So, Brian, you've come back, and now you're one ahead. And so your penultimate pen, Stephen, is Kenny Irons.
Kenny Irons. There's a Davy Irons played up north, so I'll say yes. I'll say pin high.
That's it. Davy Irons was one of my alternatives, but Kenny Irons is a pin high. You're right. He is a Tranmere Rovers legend who played for them during their most notable period in the 1990s. And after retiring as a pro, he helped England win the 2016 Seniors World Cup, aged 46. So you've drawn level. So 2s each.
Okay, Chocky, penalty or shot number 4 is Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo Slice. Bad Lie.
Correct. Whoever you got there. Kimbo Slice, real name Kevin Ferguson, was a Bahamian mixed martial arts and bare-knuckle boxer who Rolling Stone magazine dubbed the King of the Web Brawlers, thanks to his popularity of his street fighting videos on YouTube. I'm assuming it's a guess then, because I doubt very much you've seen any of his videos.
What's that?
Right, so that's yeah. Is that 3-2 then to Brian?
Yeah, I assume so. You got
Can't
it
get
right.
beat.
Okay.
Only got a
Right.
draw. You only got a draw,
So-
Stephen.
Oh, he's playing 9 games already. Shh, don't put him off on his backswing.
So let's see if you can finish with a flourish, Stephen, with Albert Ross.
Albert Ross. I would say bad lie.
Oh, no. Albert Ross. Albert Ross was a fullback.
I was actually trying to think of the golf thing. I was like, what's happening here? Albert Ross, brilliant.
Albert Ross was a fullback who made about a dozen or so appearances for Middlesbrough in the late 1930s. So he's definitely done you on that one.
I didn't get that.
You can tell tell Mark had a 11-hour flight to California the other week.
That's a belter, though.
That could be the best ever question, that, Mark.
Okay.
Well, you haven't heard your last one yet, Brian.
No, I'm starting to get nervous now because I haven't read this far ahead in the script. Brian, you conclude the round with Sam Eagle.
Pin high.
You're saying pin high? That surprises me. It's a bad lie. It's false. Sam Eagle, of course, has been one of the main characters on The Muppets since 1975. Until the year 2000, he was voiced by the legendary Frank Oz, who was also famously responsible for voicing Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Cookie Monster, and Yoda, amongst many others. So I would have thought that had been right up your street.
The Muppets, yeah, at the time, yeah.
So there we go.
It for a while.
Brian,
30 years ago.
Brian takes that one. Brian takes that one 3-2.
Yeah, well done.
So
Another classic.
Yeah.
So Chucky, you get the motivational congratulations from Alex Ferguson, whereas Stephen, you're now in Fergie's bad books for losing.
Yeah. I hope Fergie didn't have 10 grand on Stephen.
Yeah. Okay. As usual, as usual, we're going to wring the neck out of this opportunity to quiz Stephen in our Focus On section, which is our homage to the old shoot interviews of the olden days. This episode's questions come from the 1986 shoot interview of another Gallacher, Kevin Gallacher, then of Dundee United, later of Blackburn Rovers, Coventry, Newcastle and Scotland. Any relation, Stephen?
No, but he's a good player. Watched him play a lot.
So, these quick fire. You ready to spill the beans?
Yep.
Okay. Full name?
Stephen James Gallacher.
Birthplace and date?
1st of November 1974, Beckman Hospital, Broxburn.
Height and weight, although you can opt out of that second part if you like.
No, 6'2", 15 stone.
Note that Kevin Gallacher claimed that he was 5'8" and a mere 9 stone 10 pounds. Obviously, they don't put enough butter in the mash-up Dundee way. Car?
BMW.
Again, Kevin Gallacher owned a Ford Fiesta, which is probably far too big for him, even at 5'8" and 10 stone wet through. Nickname?
Stevie G.
Stevie G. Kevin Gallacher was not Kevin G, but Nasher.
Nasher.
Football hero from childhood?
Paul McStay.
Oh, please say Brian McClare.
Nah, he was...
Has anybody
He was a one-man team.
Pat Bonner, Paul McStay.
Brilliant.
Ken.
Right.
Owen Archdeacon. All come before Brian.
Yeah.
Biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment? And for me, I think Celtic not winning 10 in a row was my biggest disappointment.
Superstitions?
I always have 90s in my pocket when I'm playing golf. Don't know why.
The green.
White. 9 white tees and a green marker.
Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? Probably The Office or anything comedy. Fawlty Towers, The Office.
In 1986, 20-year-old Kevin Gallacher said his favourite show was Grange Hill. And favourite musicians?
Morrissey, the Smiths.
Morrissey, okay.
Smiths, yeah.
Yeah, and Kevin Gallacher went for Simple Minds, although maybe that was just a description of the Dundee United dressing room. Who knows? And that concludes the episode. So we've sunk the final putt and walked off towards the clubhouse. We have to say a massive thanks to you, Stephen, for coming on and fitting us into your busy tournament schedule. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen.
And, all the best for the rest of the summer.
Thanks very much. Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be a good year.
Let's hope so.
Excellent. Yeah. Chucky,
It's all right. It's been a good year. Celtic have got 2 trophies.
Exactly. One more. One more. My son, he's 24. So he's only ever seen them win trebles and cups. I can remember the early 90s and stuff like that. I'm still scarred.
I don't think he needs to worry too much for a while.
I keep telling him, just suck it in. You never know when it's going to stop.
Brian, Matthew, thanks to both of you as well.
Thank you, Mark.
Always great to talk to everyone, and thanks, Stephen, for coming on. Great company.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.
And lastly, thanks for listening to you out there. If you like what we do and don't subscribe already, please hit that button wherever it is you prefer getting your podcasts. Also follow us on X and Blue Sky at Brian McClare Pod and Instagram at Life with Brian Pod for other bits and bobs too. And we hope to see you again next time. Cheers.
Life with Brian. Life with Brian. Talking films or music. Life with Brian. Talking TV and food. Life with Brian. Talking trivia and exercise. Life with Brian. It's different every episode. Life with Brian. Talking politics and football. Life with Brian. It's different every episode. Life with Brian. Life with Brian.